Hello, everybody. Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. With me today, I've got Sarah Zheng, and we're going to be talking about her new book, which was published on the 29th of August, called The Psychology of Cybersecurity, Hacking and the Human Mind. Sarah, welcome. Where can people find you?
Thank you so much for having me, Tim. People can find me on my website, syzheng.com, or LinkedIn through just Sarah Y. Zheng.
Okay, excellent. Sarah, thank you so much for the book. Really, really interesting. Just before we were going live, we were just having a little conversation about the book, and I said to you, I thought it was a really interesting. It's not like just another book about hacking and stuff. It's the book you've designed is to be accessible to people, so they can get an understanding of cybersecurity and that sort of stuff.
Absolutely.
That's how you wrote it, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I was really happy to hear that you said that, because cybersecurity can be this very complex, intriguing sounding topic that people might only think about in technical terms, whereas actually it affects all of us. We are actually using digital technology right now to do this podcast, and therefore cybersecurity should be really an more accessible topic than what it's usually portrayed as. So we tried to write the book in a way that it could be read by anyone, from a seasoned cybersecurity professional, but also just someone who is curious and interested in the field.
Yeah, it's one of those, I walked away knowing more than when I went into the book, especially about cybersecurity. And it's one of those that I was saying, if you are a leader, and most leaders now need to understand about cybersecurity, it is a boardroom issue. For me, it was like, you need to read this book, because this is the book that's going to lay out all of the things that you need to know without understanding lots of technical jargon and technicalities. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. And this also largely thanks to my co-author, who has been a CISO for over 20 years. So he tried to put as much practical recommendations and guidelines as well into especially the last part of the book, where it talks about how do you do risk management, how do you deal with certain issues in the boardroom, how do you make sure that the culture in your organization is not going to be this blame and shaming kind of game, and also how to take care of the psychological impact that working in this field can have as a security leader, both for yourself and for your team.
Because you say the biggest vulnerability in cybersecurity isn't the technology, but the human mind. And why are people often seen as the weakest link in security?
For the second part of the question, why people are often seen as the weakest link is, I want to be politically correct here, but people are relatively easy to trick, and it's very cheap to do so. So if you can get someone to reveal their login details to you without having to really understand the technical parts of their computer system, that's both cheaper, easier, more efficient. You don't need to know all these intricate computer details. So therefore, they're often seen as the weakest link. It's very easy to make a mistake as well. We talk about, for instance, misconfigurations that cybersecurity professionals can make whilst designing a system that an organization is meant to use. So there are many, many aspects to the wider field of cybersecurity, I think, where the human element, so the human behavior and how people perceive systems, for instance, can have a huge impact.
So phishing emails are some of one of the most successful cyber attacks. You talk about in the book the psychological levers that hackers pull to outsmart people. Talk us through some of that.
Sure. So the whole thing about phishing emails is that essentially it's a really sophisticated kind of deception. The cyber hackers in this case will try to impersonate someone that you can trust. So it could be a known authority like a bank or a government official, but it could also be someone who pretends to be your parent or brother, sibling.
I often get them where they're saying we have a job. Click
on. They think you're looking for it.
I got one the other day that said that they were Deloitte, and they wanted me to click on the link and apply for a job.
Yeah, and I think what's really interesting here is that these sorts of contexts that these hackers are providing to you through those phishing emails or other, for instance, SMS or WhatsApp messages is so realistic. Like it feels like, oh, this could actually be something that's genuine. And you have to be really careful then to, for instance, check the actual sender details. Is the email address looking like it's going to a legitimate domain? Is there any link within the message that I'm prompted to click on that might not actually be safe? And I would say, as a general rule of thumb, if anyone is offering you something that's unsolicited, such as a job offer that you were really not looking for in the first place, you should always think twice before you respond.
Yeah. That it was, the email was like timdeloitte@gmail.com. So it wasn't a Deloitte. So common cognitive biases make us most susceptible to manipulation. How can we counteract them?
That's a really big and good question. And I think there was a recent podcast with an intelligence agent in the US that talks really in depth about this topic. I forgot the name of the person, but I would recommend people to look that up, because they essentially say you're most vulnerable to manipulation when you're emotional. And so when you're feeling, it could be positive or negative. So if you're ecstatic about something, let's say you're a huge Taylor Swift fan and you've been trying for months and months to get your hands on a ticket to her concert, you will be probably more tempted by someone who says, I can't go last minute and I want to sell my ticket for a good price. Turns out they are a scammer through social media, and they knew that you are this big Swiftie. But it could also be that you are in a really difficult phase of your life. You're, let's say, going through a divorce. You're having a tough time in your job. Stress levels are up. Of course, you're going to be more agitated, and therefore also maybe more easily manipulated by messages that might seem to be urgent or appeal to authority, etc.
One of the things that you also cover in the book is about the fact that cybersecurity professionals' stress levels tend to be high, and there tends to be a high turnover rate, which is a human factor of cybersecurity, isn't it?
Yes, it is. This is a really I think important point for the wider cybersecurity profession, because it seems that with the increasing rate of cyber attacks every second, literally, it becomes like a field that is beyond human capability to deal with. So it's very easy for someone who works in the operational cybersecurity area to deal with the just a sheer amount of information that they would have to process. And it's no surprise then that turnover rates might get quite high. So I know of stories from people who then have consciously decided, okay, this is way too much for me. I'm moving out of the whole field of cybersecurity. And in the long term, this is an issue, because with high turnover rates, of course, you get HR costs, you have to hire new people, you have to train them, you have to get them used to your particular system. And therefore, I think with this book, one of the aims is also to get more attention to that sort of psychological well-being element of cybersecurity.
Yes.
And that is both for, it's especially true for operational cybersecurity professionals, but actually, I would say anyone who is currently in a stressful job in an organization could be more susceptible to falling for a phishing scam. And therefore, we should maybe, on an organizational level, care more for people's psychological well-being, because eventually I do believe it leads to better cybersecurity.
Yeah, because you take us down this story, don't you, of the fact, what's a scam, and the different types of hacks, and then you go in and talk about the cybersecurity professional, and you talk about the fact that it's actually a high turnover, and then you talk about the CISO, so the Chief Information Security Officer role, what that should actually look like, and you do define that, don't you, in terms of what good looks like in terms of a CISO.
Yes. So this is really, I think, Tanvir's expertise, but I can comment briefly on it. So a good CISO should be very clear on what is the overall direction of the cyber risk management in the organization. But apart from covering that and having the technical expertise in order to design that part, I think we're also trying to say you need to care for the psychological part of both your own job as well as the people working for you. Because if indeed turnover rates are increasing, you're having to deal with so many cyber attacks on a day-to-day basis. We see actually that CISOs might have a higher susceptibility to burnouts. And then the question becomes, I suppose, how do you manage these psychological aspects in a more sustainable way? So again, it shifts away from just focusing on the technical expertise required to be in a CISO role, and also put more emphasis on the sorts of leadership and communication skills that you need as literally a business stakeholder as a CISO. You need to be able to talk to people who are not necessarily technically schooled. And this often, at least we hear from the people we talk with, is an issue.
We've done work with companies that sell to CISOs, and it's fascinating. That it's a marketplace in itself. What you talk about, what do you think is the psychology and the traits that are motivating and driving hackers? So the flip side to the CISO, so their enemy in effect. What's motivating hackers to do this? I guess it's money and things like that.
Yeah, there are a couple of things that we describe in the book. On, let's say, a very high level, I think there are two main motivators. So either it's, like you said, it's financial. They're just driven by making money quickly, or could be that they're ideologically driven. But what is common in all cases is that hackers seem to have this real big desire to understand and break into computer systems, where breaking into the system is one way to understand the system. And often you see that hackers start as teenagers. They start relatively young. They might not have a guardian or like a parent watching them all the time. And then it's very easy, if you have a laptop with an internet connection, to discover what is the world of hacking and slowly start trying out things yourself. I think another part of it is that the online communities, the online hacker groups, can provide this sort of social, social.
It's a community, isn't it?
Sorry?
It's a community.
It's a community, yes. Which they might lack in their real life. And so one reason to be so engaged in hacking is that in these online communities, they might hype each other up and feel part of this group.
So you talk in the book about building human firewalls. From a practical standpoint, how can leaders and organizations strengthen the human layer of cybersecurity?
Oh, that's a big question.
You cover this a lot in the book.
Yeah, I say read especially chapter 9. But I think it starts with asking really deep questions about what is the type of behavior that you actually want to see in your employees, in your people, in your organization. Because there's this sort of assumption that when people are aware of cyber risks, that it translates to specific behaviors. That is, if I know what a phishing email is, therefore I should always be looking out for email. No, that it just doesn't work that way in practical life. Because when you browse your email, you're trying to get your work done, right? It's not like I'm trying to spot phishing emails. So instead of trying to force people to think about cybersecurity all the time, what we suggest in the book as well is to think more about security by design principles. How can you design your information systems in such a way that certain security measures are there by default? For instance, encrypting data. It's how to make sure that people use more strong passwords, but not just passwords. We like to say passphrases, for instance. But also be on the lookout for other authentication methods because, for instance, with biometrics and other smart devices that are coming up, for instance, with electrode sleeves that you can put on your arm, or even bring computer interfaces in the next 5 to 10 years, I think the way that we're going to authenticate ourselves on our systems is really going to change. And for the better, in the sense that those kinds of authentication systems might actually be better able to deal with some of the otherwise cognitive flaws that people have, for instance, or limited memory capacity. That is a problem with passwords.
Yeah, I was watching an interview with Sam Altman yesterday. And it was fascinating because they said that he with the interviewee, who is a VC who's invested in OpenAI, is one of the first investors. And they both agreed that evolution was probably the limiting factor to AI in terms of our, we do certain things. And the way, and which is the same, I guess, is something that happens to the way that we use computer systems, and ultimately is something that can be exploited because we know the way that humans are going to react. Therefore, it's a bit like them people sending me a job. Do you want to come and work for Deloitte? Oh, yeah, I'd love to. Thank you very much. Click, 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 and then they've got my system.
True. That's an interesting point about evolution, because does he mean it in a way that evolution is not going fast enough, or?
Yes. So our bodies and our minds still work the same way that they did on the Serengeti.
Right. I see in that sense.
Yeah. So it's not, and the fact that over 20,000 years we've never really evolved. We're still thinking that way. Therefore, we're never going to evolve over the next in the way that AI is changing. Anyway, so I'll send you the link to the interview. It's Sam's always interesting in the way.
Yeah, that would be cool.
I'll send you the link. So final, because we've got about 1.5 minutes to go. AI. I need to ask the question. What's the impact on AI on cybersecurity? Because I guess it's good and it's bad.
Yeah. Indeed, good and bad. Good in the sense that I do think there's value in AI that it can deal with the enormous increase in cyber attacks, like I already mentioned, because that is probably beyond a regular human's capability. But on the other hand, AI is also accelerating the number of also contributing to that increase in cyber attacks, but also we saw with LLMs that it's incredibly easy to create sophisticated phishing emails with ChatGPT, for instance. And so the level of sophistication of these attacks is increasing. And for just a normal person, it will be much harder to discern what is actually a malicious or a legitimate kind of message. So yeah, I would not say ever that a technology is inherently good or bad, but they can open up a whole can of worms. In this case, whole kinds of scams that we haven't seen before.
I think probably the number one issue going forward for us humans is knowing what's fake and what isn't.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and that's been going on for a number of years. You know, what's fake photos, fake videos, and I think it's something that's going to, you know, it's one of the things as humans we're going to have to learn about.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting time we're living in.
It is. It is. It's a wonderful time. I've been around a few years, and it's an amazing time that we're living in. It really is. It's just so exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I gladly believe you.
So, Sarah, thank you so much for coming on and talking about your book, The Psychology of Cybersecurity, Hacking and the Human Mind. If we wanted to get a copy, where could we get one from?
Well, thanks so much for having me. You can best get it through Amazon. If you just type in the title there, you should be able to find it.
Okay. And where can we find you?
syzheng.com or LinkedIn.
Excellent. Sarah, thank you so much for coming on and talking about your book. As I said, I really loved it. Great introduction to cybersecurity. And I really love the flow and the story of it. So congratulations and well done.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And thank you for joining us.